quick confession. When my publisher approached me with the idea of putting the main character, the protagonist, onto the cover of my book, I declined it because I don't like it when the author forces an image of what the main character is supposed to look like into my head. I like to come up with the image myself. And I said, even when I'm looking for a new book to read when I'm in the bookstore, if I see a book that has a picture of one of the characters on the cover, I get turned right off and I don't purchase the book. But when I saw this book, The Downstairs Girl by Stacey Lee, on the shelf at Barnes & Noble, I couldn't help myself. I just loved it. I loved how elegant it looked. I loved what the character looked like, and I picked it up. So I apologize, everybody over at Rhetoric Askew. Maybe you knew something I didn't. Ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between, welcome back to another episode of Books and Buds, where we discuss the two greatest things on earth, books and buds. You like my coffee mug? Yeah, you like my coffee mug. Anyways, let's get into this. So, I decided to buy this book, as previously mentioned, because I fell in love with the cover. I've never heard of Stacey Lee before, but I thought this was just a beautiful cover, and I decided to open up right to the first page and just check out this first paragraph. This opening paragraph sold me. Being nice is like leaving your door wide open. Eventually, someone's going to mosey in and steal your best hat. Me? I have only one hat, and it is uglier than a smashed crow. So if someone stole it, the joke would be on their head. Literally. Still, boundaries must be set. Especially boundaries over one's worth. I loved it because I thought it was cute, it was whimsical, it was funny, and it just drew me right in. I wanted to find out what the hell this character was talking about. And since I already had an image of the character in my head, I wanted to know more about her. So, I read about the first chapter while sitting there drinking a coffee with my fiance at the Starbucks in Barnes & Noble, our local Barnes & Noble here in Augusta, and I fell in love with it. And it was only half price. It was, I think, $5, just because, I don't know, it must have been the special of the day, but it was right there on the counter, by the Starbucks counter. And I just brought it right to the register and purchased it. And I think I finished it in about a week. I really enjoyed it. So, the girl on the cover, her name is Chacon-Roche. So it's really interesting because I learned a little bit, and when I flipped through the author's comments at the end, turns out a lot of the stuff in here was true. It was historical YA, I suppose. But she discusses how we don't really know about this because history doesn't teach us this. It just teaches us what maybe history wants us to know. I don't know. But about the Chinese slavery and the indentured servitude in this country back in the days when black people were slaves, and then even after black people were set free. And the author discusses, I'll even read it to you because I don't want to get it wrong. I found this fascinating. So let me make sure I don't screw it up. So right after the epilogue here, she writes, "Were you surprised to learn that planters shipped Chinese people to the South to replace the field slaves during Reconstruction? I was. Plantation owners envisioned as an improved system of coerced labor, as Chinese workers were lauded as fine specimens, bright and intelligent." Now, that was directly from the New Orleans Times of June 30th, 1870, so that was after the Civil War. They were dismayed, however, when the Chinese behaved no differently from formerly enslaved blacks. The new workers were unwilling to withstand the terrible conditions and ran away to the cities, and sometimes vanished from the South altogether. I guess when you think about it, I mean, hindsight and everything else, it's always 2020. Why would they act any different? I mean, if you're being forced to do labor you don't want to do, you're not going to behave. So it's no surprise. And, the Irish were no different when they came to this country, and I don't imagine it would be any different for anybody. You put anyone in that kind of a circumstance, they're going to be unhappy. They're not going to do as they're told. So it was just a fascinating read. So this girl, her name is Chacon-Roche. She lives in a basement with this 60-some-odd-year-old man named Old Jin. So they're both of Chinese lineage, and the basement that they're living in, they're in hiding, and it's underneath the print shop of one of the local newspapers. Now, the local newspaper is going to be going out of business if it doesn't make 2,000 subscriptions by April, because they're owned by a bigger New York conglomerate paper. Now, living in the basement, they can hear what's going on, and if the newspaper goes under, the family that runs the newspaper might lose their house, and therefore Jo Kwon and old Jin will lose their place to live in the basement. So that's kind of where it starts. She decides to do her part by forming her own opinion column and sending it to the people as Miss Sweetie, because she wants to be kind of in hiding. She wants to write it under incognito. Number one, because women, it's not good to have their opinions known. And number two, if people find out she's a Chinese girl, they're not going to take her seriously. This is 1870. However, it turns out that her column is competing with the Aunt Aggie column that the Constitution, which is a competing newspaper, produces. And people seem to really be drawn to her outrageous opinions about women and women's rights and just Chinese rights and black people's rights. Now, the white family who's running the newspaper tends to be very progressive, and they just love it, and they are well aware that controversy sells, and boy does it. They get well over 2,000 subscriptions, and she saves the paper. Now, the book is really fun because she's working for a white family, and they're very, very well to do. They own the local paper mill. The local paper mill supplies paper to the newspaper that she writes for, and they're not very happy because they're one of those, I guess, nastier, more conservative families or whatever back in those days that wanted things to kind of stay the same. So they put the paper under threat, like we're not gonna be producing more paper to you guys if you continue to push these crazy ideas and allow this sweet Miss Sweetie column to continue. But anyways, the paper keeps going and going and going like that, and they're just not going to listen because they finally got their subscriptions, and it creates a perfect amount of drama into this book. Now, while all this is unfolding, we also it's plotted so beautiful, just beautiful. I finished it in like a week. I could have finished it in a lot less time if I didn't have so much stuff to do, but she's also discovering who her real family is because she doesn't know who her father is. She doesn't know who her mother is. And it's one of those subplots that kind of carries the book along, while the main plot of her writing incognito for this newspaper is carrying the story on the surface. The undersurface is her trying to discover who her family is, and it's just so wonderfully plotted. And I'd say about two-thirds of the way through, there's this one chapter that's just a real jaw-dropper, and you're like, how can the book continue after that? Every single thing was answered. The final third of the book is just her, just everything tying together so beautifully. Her relationship with the white family that lives above them, and her relationship with the paper, her relationship with the aristocratic family she works for. It was just wonderfully plotted. I fell in love with the book, and I learned that she's got several other books: Under a Painted Sky, Luck of the Titanic, Outrun the Moon, and I plan on picking up every single one of them because this was such a wonderful book. So I'm going to leave a link to it in the description below because I think you should give it a shot. I really do. I recommended it to my fiance for her book club, and they all agreed to read it for their November book. So I'm thrilled about it because her group, they read books based on women's suffrage, women overcoming things, a lot of memoirs, and a lot of fiction just based on women overcoming a lot of struggles. And I thought this book would have been perfect for her group, and they agreed to give it a shot. So I'm thrilled about that because I want Stacey Lee to get more attention. I've never heard of her, and I think that's outrageous, and I'm out here trying to stop that. I want her to be known. That's about it for today's video because I'm trying to keep them under 8 minutes. But you folks know the drill. Hit the like button. Hit subscribe. Do your best to spread the word on independent authors, lesser known authors, because books are important. In this case, they teach us a lot of unknown history that we could benefit from knowing. And as always, you could have clicked on any book review channel, but for some reason you decided to click on mine, and I love the hell out of you guys for it. Peace.